Growing and scaling a business is complex. It can be very scary and lonely trying to navigate it all. It comes down to the community of trusted people you surround yourself with. Let's dive in to the Business is People podcast. Hey, Quinn, excited to have you back. Today, we're talking a lot more again about how to convert more quality leads, for the traffic on your website. And to get more granular, we're really looking to understand how to avoid losing a user with the wrong flow of information. Because you're the queen of UX and CRO as a CEO of Conversion Crimes. So let's hear about it from you because you do tons of these types of testing. So what are the main things you're seeing as either not done well or just really poorly done to really help a user understand the information so that they can get to where they need to be effortlessly?
Yeah, so there's kind of two parts to this. One of it is like the visual hierarchy, how you're displaying the stuff on the page. And if you're leading people to the most important thing first, and then the second thing and the third thing. So visual hierarchy, I kind of think of it as like a volume knob for your website. So the most important thing should be at max volume. So it's the biggest, the boldest, the most attention grabbing thing. And then what's like the next piece of information they need to use? Well, maybe that's like a little bit smaller. We're going to turn down the volume a bit. So they're going to kind of go 1, 2, 3. And then the other part of that is kind of the flow. Are they getting the information that they need in the order that they need it? And one example was we ran a test on a e-commerce site, and they were asking you to like check out before you like put in the checkout information. So it was like the button to check out was on the top left, and then the information to make your selections or whatever was in the bottom right, but it really should be like the button should have gone underneath. So you fill in the information and then the button's there. That's the flow versus they're filling out the information here. And then they've got to go all the way to the left side, which is not really the normal place to put a checkout button. So this is like one of the biggest things that we kind of see on sites.
So Quinn, why do you think pages are designed like that? Like, who do you see as the abuser of that pretty often? Like, which department, or which person, which role?
Everybody. I mean, we're all just like business owners and we want to get stuff done. So we just like do it and we execute and we get it out there and we're trying things. But once you kind of get stuff out there, you want to make it better. So it's about like finding out how people are using the information. Are they able to find the things that they want to find and the flow that they want to find it? So it's just like, sometimes you just execute and push stuff out and you don't really put a lot of thought into it, or maybe you just don't have that kind of knowledge. Like not everyone is great at user experience or design and they can't like see these things. So maybe they're just oblivious. So yeah, it's just a pretty common thing.
And I'm not trying to pick on anyone. I'm just curious because like we both work with so many different people, right? When we're looking at like optimizing, CRO, conversion rate optimization of a site. And it's a mix. Yeah, a lot of times it's either a person who's not a graphic designer, who's just a content person or a social media person who shouldn't be touching the site, but it's not the fault of the business owner because they can only hire 1 or 2 people. And then so eventually, you have to outsource it or you find software or it's the owner doing it. And sometimes we see that the owners are trying to be marketers because they're so close to their brand and you got to let it go a little bit and kind of trust people to like touch your site. And you also see people who it was their cousin who did the site and they don't want to say anything.
Yeah, exactly. And then sometimes like you just kind of build it and put it out there and it just happens and it's okay. The thing is that when you are doing it, it's like that you're putting something there. So it's like, I know how to use this. But you don't really think that when somebody else comes to it and they look at it, they're like, well, I don't know how to use that. Why is that checkout button in the top left corner? Like that makes no sense, and when you can see people like confused with it, then you'd be like, oh, okay, well, it made sense to me, but nobody else is understanding that. So
like organized chaos. I'm like my desk. I know where everything is. My wife is like, why does your desk look like this? I'm like, don't touch it. I know exactly where things are, even though it's messy.
Exactly. But like someone else comes to look at there, they're like, oh, where's the black Sharpie?
Like, oh, it's right here. Like I lift up that paper. I'm like, it's right there.
Yeah, but they wouldn't think to like look under the piece of paper for it. They would look at the pencil holder, right? Where normally that kind of stuff is, right?
Yeah, I've come to this realization, even from a content standpoint, from positioning, they say write as a fifth grader level. And I've done this with my daughter who's 8, and I'll have her look at some websites we built or even like a landing page layout and be like, tell me what this is or find this for me. What do you feel like, that idea of like just keeping it simple, but giving it to like, yeah, a kid or someone just completely like has no ties to your business? Like, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, it's great because there actually used to be this website. Maybe it's still out there. It's like the user is drunk or something. And this guy would like literally drink beer and then do like usability tests on the site. And he's like, your site should be so easy to use that a drunk person can figure it out. And it's great because you're like, the thing is, like, you want experience to be frictionless and intuitive. That's one of the reasons Steve Jobs, Apple did so well, because it's like you don't have to read a manual to understand how to use an iPad. Like a 5-year-old kid can pick that up and intuitively like know kind of what they're doing or when they're playing games or what have you. And that's what you want your website to be. You want people to intuitively know where to go to find information and for that information to be in that spot. So to kind of like really understand that, yeah, watching people use it for the first time, because like we kind of talked about, like, where everything is on your website, where to look things, you can do things quickly, but you don't know what it looks like to someone that's viewing it for the first time. And can they find that information? Are they going through the right flow? Are they getting what they need at the right time? So yeah.
I've run into this looking at just like concert tickets or just trying to buy tickets for something, right? It's like you want more. Like I'm scrolling or I'm looking around. I'm like, I need some more information. I need some more pictures. I need to have some more validation. But I'm like, that's it. The end of the road is like buy now or book now. And I'm like, no, I need more information. Right. So I think having these feedback loops, through user testing, like what you guys do, or just even talk to up here, all the folks, I think it's so important because you want to make sure you meet the clients where they're at, right? And everyone has different needs. Some people need more information, some people need less. And one really good tip I got from a mentor is you want to provide 3 forms of ways for people to consume: written, verbal, and audio. Because that's why you see videos on websites. That's why you see graphics, right? Because they explain complex things in a graphical or animation, or written, because some people just prefer to read it and they don't want to, click the link. So I think sometimes people assume like, I had a video there, why didn't they understand it? Well, did you transcribe what that video said and like explain summarize that video? So I think having a mix of information so you kind of meet people how they want to consume content will help create better conversion.
Yeah, and like going back to that, it's also to have the hierarchy of even the written information, so people can skim and then be like, oh, this is the information I really care about. And then they're going to read those like 2 paragraphs or whatever, if that makes sense, So there's like the headlines, they can skim those and they're like, oh, I want to know like where the event is, if they're like whatever sustainable practices or whatever questions they have about it, then they can kind of skim, find, oh, here's our sustainability, whatever, then they can like read about it and find that information pretty easily.
Quinn, do you have kind of like insight from a analytics standpoint? Like, is it a 50-50 split, like content versus graphic? What do you see as like the magic blend? Because some sites have a lot of content from a text standpoint versus, and some people just are photography heavy.
Yeah, it depends a lot on the audience, really, and what the audience is looking for. So, like you said, I like to have a good mix where you're making the flow of information enjoyable. People can skim it, they can kind of find what they need. But as far as like doing like video versus like heavy content and stuff like that, it really depends on the audience. Like if you have a photographer audience, then probably you want a lot of beautiful photos, where if you have a more like technical audience, then they want to get into like those nitty-gritty details and the content, right? And so I would just say that depends.
Spot on. All right, any last kind of words of wisdom that you feel like is the quickest wins, that if someone still hasn't done any testing, what's the quickest, easiest way for them to kind of look at their site today and just make some aha moment changes?
Really, just have somebody, like you can go to a coffee shop, you can use like a user testing service or anything, where just watch someone like try to do something on your website. It doesn't have to be like something, just grab someone from the office. I mean, I guess we're not in offices now, but somebody like you grabbed your kid, right? It's like, how would you do this? Watch how they navigate it. What can they figure out? Even that can give you the information that you need.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well, thanks. And looking forward to some more chats down the line.
Awesome.
If you have any questions and topics you'd like us to cover, please email me at podcast@inthinkagency.com or message me on LinkedIn.